Thank you. So I need to be able to share my screen. Is it going to let me do that?
Yep.
Cool. Oh my goodness. All right. So here's today. I wanted to start today looking at where everything is and kind of talking about that, but also talking a little bit about Crowley's perspective on astrology, and we're talking about Leo today, which is a fire sign. And Leo was Crowley's rising sign, and he put a lot of stock in the rising sign as the being able to look at someone and discern their rising sign as being the development of a scientific exploration, or maybe mastery of astrology. He was not a giant fan of astrology relative to it as a divinatory process. So it's been one of those things for me. I'm kind of 6 of 1 here and there about trying to predict things. I don't really care about predicting things. I think if you use it as a tool for self-knowledge, you're getting the best out of it. And you're far more likely to know what's likely to happen if you understand how something is constructed. And to me, that's what it is best at. So he would talk about how to be able to recognize somebody, the rising sign is that, well, and when you read his book, he goes on about Leo. Boy, Leo is like the perfect man. And I've got some choice things to say about that, but the idea that there is, that each of the signs, each one of them has a really different character, has different physical qualities, has different expressions. And he was very much certain that there are some that are good and some that are bad. You know, Leo is like your, fortune, the sun is shining on you, but if it's Virgo, you're just shit out of luck, believe me. He doesn't have anything good to say about Virgo at all. And I kind of think that I don't agree with that as an astrologer. I think you can take pieces of information from all of that, but I don't think that we're predestined because of our rising or our moon or our sun signs to have any particular sort of experience in life. It's kind of like a roll of the dice. We get this set of, if you're playing a role play game, you get these set of powers that are kind of innate to you, and you get, limitations and difficulties from your nature, and we work with those, and we either learn how to develop other strengths and to understand how our weaknesses and our difficulties manifest and how to work with them, or you're kind of at their mercy. So yeah, so it's kind of my opening sally, as it were. Anybody, I was thinking today, I don't ever ask this, but what do people want to know about astrology? Okay.
I want to use it, like you said, to understand more about myself.
Uh-huh. Okay, now I'm having a little technical difficulty here, trying to get back to my screen. Can you all still see that screen, or is it something else now?
Still the same screen.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. So, well, some of you have had some astrology. What do you see when you look at that picture? So, over here, can you all see the cursor?
Yes.
So what do we call this point on the astrological chart? 9 o'clock.
Is that the
That's
horizon?
horizon.
Sorry?
Horizon?
Yeah, you're at one end of the horizon. One end has a specific name and then the other end has another
The
name.
ascendant.
Exactly, thank you. Often
Trying to think of the
called
word.
rising. So ascending or rising. Thank you, Steve. And so when I talk about Crowley having Leo rising, it means that Leo was in this position. Now, when we look at the degrees here at the ascendant, we see 29 degrees. So we have just like a breath. We are at the breath of end of, oh goodness. Well,
Sagittarius?
yeah, Sagittarius as it's moving into the first house. So it's the rising sign, but it's also where so we have this the ascendant, but we also have the cycle moving this way. So it's a little confusing that way. So Sagittarius is rising, but it's going to be more degrees of Sagittarius down here as we go. So anyhow, it's the kind of clocks moving in both directions at the same time. So while there is a Sagittarius at the moment, and probably in about 10 minutes, we won't have that anymore, rising, we have pretty much everything in the first house is in Capricorn. So when I think about this, I think about how, what the degrees here, how this could be what someone kind of in their nature shows their ascendant or their rising sign is like the underlying way that we move in the world. And it's actually often a sign that people get mistaken for if people are guessing what your sun sign might be. And it is also the most personal part of the chart because we go through the entire 12 zodiac signs in the space of 24 hours. And so there's only roughly 2 hours where we're in each sign. So it's the reason why knowing someone's time of birth is so important when you're calculating their chart, because otherwise, where we orient this entire graph from is in question. All of the domains in the astrological chart relate to different aspects of living. And if you don't have a place to anchor this in time, it's a guessing game. Does this make sense to everybody?
Yeah.
Yep.
Cool. So Crowley thought that if we could discern, and here we are already, we've moved into Capricorn. If we could discern what someone's rising sign was from their behavior, from their values, from their physical presentation, from all of these things, then we could, then we would have this actual phenomenal, like in terms of based in phenomena, way of connecting what could and has become in many cases a real woo-woo affair, astrology, to reality. So his book, if you read his book, he spends a lot of time speaking about historical figures that are pretty far back. If you're a historian, it could be fascinating, but if you're not, a lot of them are a little hard to know much about. You know, it's kind of like I like to pull up charts of famous people, and you know, someone here, our common cultural connections. If I talk about Jimmy Carter, or if I talk about Madonna, or if I talk about any number of other public figures, they'll speak to our minds about things that we collectively know about them. And his book is like Cromley and, you know, Madame Blavatsky and, you know, a whole bunch of characters that we may know a little bit about, but we don't have that fleshed out sense of their humanity that we would if we lived during the time that they were alive. So, or Cromwell.
So I have a question for you, just
Sure.
totally unrelated. It's
Okay.
just me looking at this chart and wondering something.
Mm-hmm.
The planets mostly pretty much move clockwise around this wheel, typically, correct?
Yeah.
But the retrograde planets would move counterclockwise?
Well, yeah, that's
So those,
theoretically, that's why they're retrograde.
well, yeah, so those planets are,
They look like they're going backwards.
right. So it's sometime in the middle of the night here, all these planets and the sun and everything else should really just be in a big group down there, right?
Well, it could be in the middle of the night. We have them right here, right now.
Right.
You know, and
I'm just
this
looking at all the aspects, and you've got like all these oppositions and squares, and I mean this thing's really busy.
it is. It's a complicated time we're living in.
Yeah. So
I mean, at any given moment, we go through a whole bunch of different things, but as this progresses and then backs up and progresses and backs up, we've got in this first house here a lot of like, you know, heavy hitters. We've got Jupiter and Pluto and Saturn, and then this is Athena. And then the South Moon node, which these in the astrological chart refer to the, you know, the purpose of what we're here for. So we've got our purpose in Sagittarius, and this is what we come in understanding versus what this one would be, what we're here to work on, and that would be around communication at the moment. Learning how to communicate about ourselves and about, in this case, it would be business and health. But as I said, since the sun, since in the 24 hours we go through all the signs, the where everything is in this chart moves throughout the day. So I guess kind of my message today, if hopefully, is kind of about impermanence, in the sense that, I mean, we kind of get this impression from, you know, learning about our natal charts that, you know, our sun is in this sign and our rising is in this sign, and we have, you know, because our Venus is in this house, in this sign, then we have this certain way that we relate to people, and because Jupiter's in this house. When you get settled into understanding astrology a little bit, what you find is that we're always in a flux. We're always going to be impacted in different ways throughout our experience in our life by these forces. So they're not going to just stay in one place. That's where we started. But we're always in constant relationship to where we started. But we have also a lot of other starts of things. So like, you know, a very useful way of using astrology is to look at this, look at the transits of the day, when you're thinking about doing a ritual, or when you've just graduated from something, or you know, we often do charts around the times that we have initiations, because you have begun yourself again. You've started a set of experiences again, and you can get a picture of what that experience would be. You know, I was born a double Aries with Virgo rising, but when I had my first degree, it was in November. So I was born into Scorpio, and I have my chart here somewhere for that, but I don't remember all of the other particulars, but that is another beginning. It's like the beginning of my experience of my deep commitment in the OTO. So that is another beginning of my life. I could, you know, when I finally sell my house, I'll do some transits for them, because that speaks to the moment of my transition from being in this set of circumstances to moving into another one. And it can give me direction and guidance for what might, you know, improve that experience, or might, you know, I might be able to have a sense of how to navigate it, so that I can get you know, I can get answers to questions I have about how to proceed from it. So if we look here, all of this stuff in the first house here being retrograde. Now we know Jupiter, Pluto, and Saturn, we're in a fairly long-term situation with those. They're not going to be changing immediately. And the retrogrades are extending their presence in that sign, because it's kind of like when you go through your first Saturn return when you're around 27, 28 years old. If you're really lucky, Saturn just goes into the sign, approaches the degrees that it was in when you were born, passes through them, and moves on past. But what usually happens is Saturn comes up close and then backs away, or it comes up and it crosses and then it backs over it again and then it crosses it again. So with these far outlying planets, we get these experiences that are like being, you know, everything gets kind of colored in a certain way for a time. You'll hear people say things like, man, it just seems like lately everything is hard, or no matter what I do, I can't seem to get past this certain thing, or, you know, any number of different ways that people respond to stuff. Well, we're in a time where Capricorn, does anybody remember what the mode of expression for Capricorn is? I know, just thrown out a pop quiz.
It's fixed Earth, isn't it?
Not fixed, but definitely Earth.
Well then.
Cardinal?
Cardinal, yeah. It's got that same nature like Aries and Cancer and Libra. It's that beginning, and very much cardinality is about movement. And Taurus is the one that's the fixed one for Earth. But so thank you though for jumping in there. So Capricorn wants to move, and one of the ways that I remember this is that the symbol is that goat, you know, and I always think about, I don't know, one time I was in Colorado and we were driving through a canyon and I saw a sheep go up a hill, and I swear to God, it was almost straight up and down. It just went. No hesitation, no question, none of it, just climbing. And that kind of nature of just, you know, I've got the ground under me and I'm going, is what Capricorn is about. To have it going retrograde is frustrating. It feels like being stuck in a state of trying to get something done, but you just have to keep looking back at looking back and trying to figure out what it is that what kind of information it was that you needed to be able to move forward, and, you know, and kind of just being patient, because these outlying planets they're not so personal, especially Pluto, but Jupiter and Saturn, you know, they're right at the edge of whether they care if it's you that they help, or just if they're just generally beneficial or generally limiting. So so this time period has kind of an inherent well, things heat up when you stop them and they want to go. And like I was saying, in this moment, for this next couple of hours, that's in our consciousness as, you know, as who we are. It's easy to think this energy belongs to me, and I'm the one that's frustrated, and I'm the one that's being stopped, and I'm the one that's being held back, if you will. Whereas, you know, in 6 hours or something, it could be impacting our relationship with our guardian angel, our relationship with our partner, or our relationship with whether we get our homework done. So what I'm trying to say is that part of the inherent complication of astrology is the fact that it's a system that is in constant motion. So one of the exercises that I think actually is really, really beneficial and useful for people who are trying to get themselves connected with it. It's very hard just following the sun, because our consciousness, a whole year is a long time to keep on a project, and one day is not long enough to stretch out the experience enough, because most of us sleep, and, you know, there's just times when we're not going to be paying attention. Following the lunar cycle is a great way to get an experience of what the shifts in the natures of the sign are. And because the moon is associated with our emotional selves, I mean, I think some of us are equipped a little better to deal with the emotional side just from an astrological perspective, but we can at least follow the shifts and begin to understand our own relationships with them. So I have an app in my phone that gives me a little notice every time the moon moves from one sign to the next. And I just pay attention to the kind of things that happen, the interactions I have with people, the kind of conversations that I have with strangers, or with, you know, that come up with my students. I had a lot of very people who felt like they were kind of falling apart this week. We had, the sun was in Pisces for 2 or 3 days, and it, you know, in this very solar time, Leo is just like, it's the, you know, a bunch of the world goes on vacation in August, because it's a time when you want to be able to be kind of indulgent and relaxed and taking care of yourself, and like, you know, in a way of like what's gonna kind of restore you. Miss Kim always talks about her bucket of Thelema, but, you know, we all got our own buckets of, you know, Thelema and, I don't know, play, whatever it is that we need, gardening, that restores us. So we have this energy of this time, this you know, wanting to have parties, and wanting to spend time with our friends, and show our affection for them, and show our, you know, how much our relationships with them matter to us. And it's, you know, the fire aspect is really, I go back to my Taoist roots with that, because when you think about the nature of the fire, I mean, from a very profound primary perspective, Leo really does represent the sun. For all of us as mortal creatures, the sun is that continuous warmth that, you know, and you know, anybody who's ever experienced seasonal seasonal affective disorder knows that when the sun is behind the clouds, or when we're a little further away from it, they feel that, like, feel that receding of the warmth. They feel that absence of the warmth. And so we have this, we're in this time that is just, you know, is demanding in that desire to connect with people, you know, in the radiance, but also in the way that fire reaches out and wants to draw things into it. I personally have been extremely grateful that I'm not smelling the forests burning at the moment. I haven't heard anything in the news about big fires, but I know there must be some. They're just not talking about it as much as other things. Anybody heard anything about that? Have I just missed?
There's one
Southern
down in
California is
California.
burning.
Yeah. Yeah, I know there have been days that I smelled smoke on the air, but I didn't know if it was just, you know,
Yeah,
something
it's
else.
Southern California, I think, or middle of California.
Yeah. Anyhow, so we have this fire energetic in this time. If you pay attention to the moon during this month, which we're probably mostly out of Leo now, but we're like at, today's the 10th, isn't it? Is it the 10th? No, it's the 9th. The 9th, we have about 10, 11, 12 days left of Leo. But you can do it in any sign, really. It's just kind of comparing the energies to, you know, it's a different set of energies to compare. But if you follow that moon through this solar time, there's a real big distinction in the energy. So we can see here, the moon is in Aries right now and 29 degrees. So it's been in Aries for the last 2 or 3 days, which is very much simpatico, very happy in the warmth of the Leo. So from a very basic perspective between the solar energies and the lunar energies, we have this kind of harmony happening. Yeah, Mars is there too in Aries. So the way things are moving energetically in the world fits with that too. We have a lot of retrogrades going on right now. Did y'all see that? So these are always retrograde, but and frequently the asteroids are retrograde because they tend to kind of stay in the orbits of bigger planets, and they get, our perspective on them shows them looking like they're going backwards more often. But Jupiter and Pluto and Saturn, like I said, this is another asteroid. Neptune, Chiron also, and then, yeah, so it's like half of everything is, from our perspective, going backwards. So interesting times. So you were, Steve, you were talking about, well, I'm going to make the suggestion again a little more directly, follow the moon. When we look, I think now is a good time when the sun is in Leo, because there's a distinct difference between that Leo energy and the lunar energy in general, but you can do it during any one of the signs. Virgo is very focused on service and taking care of things. So that would be the energy that you would be feeling the complement to with the moon. So when you get those experiences of all of the relationships of the signs too, so like we know with the new moon that the moon is going to be in the same sign as the sun. So the dark of the moon, we have the beginning of the cycle, everything is kind of in concordance, in harmony. And then as the moon continues through the zodiac, we get to it being in opposition to the sun, and we have the full moon. So we always have that polarity between the sun and the moon when you're looking at the energetic of the full moon. And it's part of why, I mean, it's the strongest pull that the moon has on the earth at that point. We have this like, you know, we feel the pull in the tides. We feel the pull of the moon in the water in our bodies. We don't really have a choice about how much water we've got in our bodies. That's kind of how we're made. So feeling, you know, following that cycle and paying attention to when it moves will begin to give you like a visceral, a physical experience of each of the signs, which is one of those places where you can begin to have the experience of making judgments, not just from our ability to think through something, but from our physical response to it. So it, you know, as a fire sign natively, I have, you know, I have resonance with other fire signs. I have resonance with air signs, but I also have I also have the Aries moon as well. I was born on a new moon, so I get that similar sort of thing happening lunarly. I have a kind of a concordance with internally. We can learn about our internal relationships. You've got, maybe your sun is in Capricorn and your moon is in Cancer, and that's a square relationship. So not so completely harmonious. As you notice when like we come around monthly to that time when the sun is in one sign, you know, or, you know, around our birthday, we talk about our solar returns. We return back to the same place where the sun was. Often the moon is close to that. We can feel that same energetic in that return. You know, we talk about the Saturn return. Well, each planet returns to the sign that it was in when we were born. So you can look, you can follow the transits and look at where, you know, and it's literally, it's just coming up with a transit chart like this. You just need to be able to read the glyphs to know which planet is where. If you know in your chart, for instance, I know, let's see, my Saturn is in Pisces. So that tells me I'm just a couple, 3 years maybe away from another Saturn return. So Saturn is coming closer to where it was when I was born. My Neptune is in Scorpio and it's in Pisces now. So there is a kind of a concordance, again, a harmony in the relationship between Scorpio and Pisces because they're both water signs. So the illusions of this time, our ideas about how things are supposed to be are, you know, I'm in agreement with them in a kind of a general way. My Mars is in Taurus and Mars is in Aries here. Well, that's, you know, the relationship between Aries and Taurus is like, I always say it's like, I am, in that speaking of the sense of me being here is the Aries, and I am, you know, my finger touching my body, my experience of being incarnate is Taurus. So we're, you know, there's like, it's like the ball flies and it gets caught, is the Aries Taurus relationship. And so this energetic is something that's pretty comfortable with me. And then I'd said my moon was also in Aries. So it's a time that where when I sit and I do my meditation, it's been easy for me to get big emotional things to move. So kind of coming back again, constantly in motion is the way that you can relate to this in a way that it can be useful to you in a magical practice. You can look at, I mean, I often am looking at things after they've happened, but you can definitely prospectively look at something and see what, you know, what is this the best time to choose to do this kind of ritual? Is this the, is this our, is this going to be a time that where actually what's going on up there is going to be working against what my intention is? I mean, we say, what is doing magic? It's getting things to move according to our will, but it's not like we're doing that in a vacuum. You got to pay attention to where you are. If you want somebody to hear you, if you're in a vacuum, they're not going to. So anyhow, so we've got, yeah, I'm curious if there are any questions or if anybody else has a kind of a thought about what it is they want to know about astrology.
I did have a question.
Okay, James,
So,
93.
so the side that you said was like 9 o'clock
Mm-hmm.
is ascending.
Yeah, the ascendant.
So is the opposite side descendant?
Yeah, over here is the descendant. So you can see this is further up than it was, and we started off 29 degrees of Sag, and now we're at 6 degrees of Capricorn. So this is where things are moving up and coming down. Now, when we interpret things, we go counterclockwise, which is a little confusing. That's what I was trying to explain earlier. But yeah,
You're going backwards because you're looking at what has already happened, right?
well, this is the horizon, like Vanessa said, is the break between what's happening in the dark and what's happening in the light. Essentially, this is our the things that about ourselves and relating to ourselves, and this is more about relating to the outside world. So we the things that are present down here, I mean, it was like I was saying too, this is moving all the time. So it's going to move from being a personal issue to being a bigger, like in a bigger scale. And so is that answering your question?
Well, a little bit. I'll get it later.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a big process learning all of this. There's so many moving parts. And I recommend if you don't have all of these glyphs memorized, that you practice as we're sitting here, drawing them out, and spend some time sitting with them, thinking about what they symbolize. There's a fair amount out there. One of my favorite astrologers, I keep having conversations with him online lately, is Antero Ollie. And he wrote a book called Astrologic, Astrologik. And I think if you look up his name, you can, he's got a lot of his books on his website, and you can like download them as PDFs. But he talks about each of these symbols and talks about, what is a circle? What are the little horns? What is a cross? What are these specific, what are these things meant to represent? And so when you get a little bit of grounding in the pieces that make up the symbols, it gives you another way of moving through this journey, this progression. And then he's got some interesting ways. He talks about the planets as being forces, and then the houses in the chart, each one of these pieces of the pie being domains of experience. So very interesting perspective. Quite an iconoclast, that Antero Ollie. He's also a pretty incredibly talented filmmaker. So
I have a question.
yeah.
Can you talk a little bit more about the head and the tail of the dragon and what exactly those are and what they mean?
Sure. Well, in Vedic astrology, they're Rahu and Ketu, Rahu Ketu, I believe. And they're calculated by what are called moon nodes. And I have to be honest, I'm not completely certain exactly what phenomena that's in referring to, but a node is like a like a place that you stop in a progression of something. So it's some relationship of the moon to itself. Often these are in relationship to eclipses. So these moon nodes are in Vedic astrology connected with past lives and like the future that we have. So we look at this south moon node as like all of the things that you bring into this experience, all of your kind of innate knowledge. So in this time, we have this Sagittarian understanding or intuitive knowledge base. What does Sagittarius do? Why don't you tell me, Steve? You're a pretty good example.
Well, don't ask me. I don't know what I do.
There you go. We're looking up there. We've got a goal. If that Sagittarian is focused on trying to find the lodge, a new home right now, but or probably making sure the cat doesn't knock all the books off the shelf or something. But Sagittarius in its nature is the symbol you can see is the arrow. But it's got a cross on it. And Antero would say that that cross is like, means that it's grounded in a certain time, space, location, but then it's moving off, up and away. And the symbol is that of the centaur's bow, putting the arrow up into the sky. And I always describe it as like the Sagittarius is, about having all of that, like the accumulated wisdom that happens with the fire of like the enthusiasm that happens with Aries and the devotion that happens with Leo. Sagittarius is letting go kind of the details, but trying to put the big picture together. And the nature of how we how we know things. Sagittarius is a lot about knowledge, but not just facts, but like the putting together of all of our experiences into like an awareness and a knowledge base that is, well, it ends up being pretty much wholly connected to that person's sphere of experience. So anyway, often, I mean, they're present where they are, but they're often thinking about things off in another realm. So we're looking in this time, we're looking back at history and the things that we've done as a culture and as a world. We're looking forward to what we want things to be like and how can we change them? How can we make things different? There's really that kind of like clash of the institutions of the past and how we want them to change so that we can feel safe moving forward into this new future. And there's a process of kind of embattlement that happens to get change to happen like that. So that's where we are right now. And what we're headed towards over here is Gemini. And that, if we look at the two signs there, it's always going to be, opposite signs that, one that we come from and move to another. And sometimes, like Gemini is the third sign in the zodiac. But it, which I would say, I think it's important for people to realize Aries is the first sign in terms of thelema, because we start our year during Aries. The vernal equinox is the time when Aries starts, and it's when our thelemic new year is. So you'll see Aquarius listed sometimes. Capricorn as the first sign because it happens in January, but it's not, yeah, from a perspective of the turning of the year, that's not the beginning. That's just the beginning of the Gregorian calendar. So,
Right. It seems like they're trying to make it work with the modern calendar, and it just doesn't.
it doesn't. No, we want to work from the beginning of the spring as the beginning of our year. So this is the third sign in the zodiac. It's a mutable air sign that is really in its fundamental nature about the comings and goings of things that are happening around us at any given time. The mundane world, whether your car is working and whether you've been able to get to the grocery store and whether you're getting along with the person that you live with and communicating well, and whether you're, the things that shift in a very, in a mercurial way. Sagittarius is more related to Jupiter, in its energetic, and Gemini is related to Mercury. So really that kind of shapeshifter, trickster kind of energy, and all of the possibilities of how things change from moment to moment. So we are moving from this kind of disconnected to a degree from the specifics of the prime of the moment we're in to an awareness of exactly where we are and what we're doing and what we're communicating and what's important to do for the next thing. What's the next thing to do? And we are moving from the 12th house, because this is in this moment, our undoing, to the 6th house, which is health and business and getting things done. So how to use this? Do you have further questions in terms of how I organize my response, Steve?
No. Yeah, I was just kind of curious about the nodes of the moon and what they were.
That's a good an event. It's related usually to a specific phenomenon.
It seems like they're on either side of the moon. I mean, it seems like, like the 90-degree kind of angle thing.
Yeah.
To the moon, and I'm just wondering, I assume that they move through the signs at the same speed that the moon does.
They go backwards and they go very slow. So they don't move as quickly as the moon does.
Oh, okay. So they crisscross the moon then.
Yeah, I have a book. Obviously it's packed up right now, but I have a book.
This happens to be with this one that they seem like at an exact 90-degree angle to each other. So I was just wondering.
Oh, they're 180. Yeah. They're always in opposition to each other.
Right. But I'm saying in position to the moon.
Oh yeah, the moon, but that changes. Yeah.
Right.
They move more like Chiron does. So, I mean, obviously they're moving quicker on this because this is a transit. So it appears like, but they don't go out of their signs very fast. Anyhow. Yeah, so moon nodes. I've always used them when I'm reading someone's chart to have a sense of, like I said, what you come in with and what you're headed towards. And it can sometimes feel like, people will look at their lives and they'll be like, well, I started off, it seemed like I was way more successful when I started, but now I'm a lot happier. And it's like, these kind of internal processes have more to do with what we're here to do and what's important for us on a personal level than whether it looks like that from a societal level. So like mine is from moving from Scorpio to Taurus, which is where this is headed next. And I started off feeling, like I'm really good at supporting people in a lot of different ways and helping other people get through stuff. But what I'm really meant to be doing is accepting support and being a leader. And because of where they are in my chart, that process looks like me being a teacher and leading in that context. And it took me a while to shift from that. Like it's a risk-taking situation, and it's also a you acquire enough experience at some point where you're capable to move into that heading forward rather than back. Although some people just always stay in what's comfortable and don't venture out to try the challenging thing. So yeah, so moon nodes are very useful for helping people kind of guide their sense of what they're supposed to be doing with their life. So the other piece of this is all of the lines in the middle. What are all of those lines about? Well, the red ones here have little squares, and we have Capricorn and we have Libra, and they are square to each other. We have 17 degrees, and then we have 14, 19, and 23. And that, like, 17 and 19 is almost an exact 90-degree angle, where the 14 and the 23 are a little bit wider on that. But when the planets are, well, I don't know, this moves a little faster. Juno moves a little faster, so the orb is a little broader on that. But that is, it's an angle, it's geometry. And then we have quincunxes here, which are these, it looks like a kind of a K on its side. And what happens with this is called, this is a specific kind of figure called a yod, or a finger of God. And what is between the two ends of this is said to be pointed towards this up here and giving, kind of informing it. So we have Neptune in our illusions in Pisces, which is very grandly open. Mars in Aries, which is forceful. And then between them is Chiron in Aries. And Chiron is about, and especially retrograde's about more of a healing process, being pointed up here at Juno in Libra, which is about finding balance in relationship. So in this time, we have this moment, as long as this lasts, of being able to utilize that energy to work on how we treat each other and how we interact. Now we've also got these ones that are in that relationship as well. And then it goes from that one to a red one to another red one. Sometimes we'll get a three-sided figure in here. Yeah, there we have that. So from up here in Athena and Jupiter across to the sun, we have that square, or, well, in this kind it's quincunx. They're far enough apart that it's not quite an opposition and bigger than a square. Does that make sense to everybody? So we think about probably Jeff could explain this to us. We got 360 degrees in, can you all see this? Ooh, I made some circles. If we look at, I don't know if that's helping or not, but if you think about a circle and you draw a square within it, that is the relationship, that's, we call those square relationships. Now this square here, theoretically, you could have another square. We have this square, then we could have another one that would connect to it, and then another one, and then another one. So we would have a square in the center of this, and 4, you know, planets or whatever that would be in that 90-degree relationship. Now, that doesn't happen always. Some people have them in their chart. They call them grand crosses. It would be a representation of the relationship between having 4 planets in different elements, but all of the same mode of expression. So I was talking about the mode of expression of Capricorn being cardinal and being that kind of force that gets the energy of a cycle moving. Aries also has that, Cancer has that, and so does Libra. Theoretically, if these degrees were close enough in all of these places, which they actually aren't, you could have a 3 or 4-sided figure that was a grand cross or a square, a complete square. Sometimes you'll have T-squares. So you'll have the opposition between 2, let's see, 2, yeah, it doesn't fit. 21 and 17 would, so you've got this opposition here. And if the Cancer was of the right degrees, then that could be over here, and we could be seeing like a, is it an isosceles triangle that has 2 with the same length and 1? Jeff? Jeff?
It is.
It is? Thank you. Okay, so you're all with me on this? You're getting, yeah? Okay, so in that square relationship, whether it's in opposition like Aries and Libra, or whether it's Aries and Capricorn or Aries and Cancer, you have this energy that has a kind of a halting quality to it. It's, well, in some cases, in the case of cardinality, it starts going and it keeps going, and it's like you can't stop. People who don't ever pause to reflect on things, this kind of a situation can happen with this sort of figure in their chart. If it's a fixed square, then it's like, this is how it is, and I'm not going to change. People get stuck completely. If it's mutable, then it's like, it's not stuck going. Maybe you get going a little bit, but then you lose momentum. It's more about letting go of the whole thing. So this square nature is generally work. When you see that square relationship between two figures, the 2 planets or asteroids or whatever, you're seeing something that's not an easy relationship in its nature. Then the trine, which is the green one, those are like, it's all the same element. So in this case, we have fire in Leo, and over here on these others, we have Aries. And the energetic of the 2 of them relating is like, I always say, it's like you've been given a gift that you didn't even realize you got. So things work so easily, and the energy flows so easily. It's like we didn't even realize. It's like privilege, to use the ideas of the things that we're talking about as a society right now. You got given something and it's working for you, but you weren't even aware that you were given it, not unless you investigated. So that trine energy is, why does it work that way? So we've got, if you think about that circle again and you divide it into thirds, it's 120 degrees, because the circle itself is 360. That 120 degree angle, because there's just 3 of them and it's 1 element, you have 1 of each of the modes of expression. So what you have is an entire cycle. you have that cardinality, you have the fixed, you know, so the quarterback threw the ball, the whoever it is caught it and then ran with it and ran with it and ran with it, and then someone came along and he just tucked the ball over to the side and they got over the finish line with it, you know. It's or threw it, I don't know, whatever, I'm not good at sports analogies, but you had a team working with a common goal to get something to happen. Do y'all follow? So when we have that, like the like I always like to use the earth element, the cardinality is that Capricorn energy of, like, I'm going to make this happen, I'm going to get this started, I'm, you know, it's gets so connected with wealth and business, but it's really, it can be like, I'm going to plant a garden, I'm going to get out there with the shovel and dig up the ground, I have this vision of what I want the garden to be. And then you have the Taurus, which is like, okay, we got to move the earth now, we're going to keep digging and we're going to keep it loose and we're going to get those plants in there and we're going to get out there and water it every day and we're going to pull out the things that we don't want to have growing in there. And so you have this devotion to the maintenance and the care of it. And then the Virgo, which comes along and is like, we're going to continue this on from year to year to year. It's not just work anymore. It's, we've created something and we're going to maintain it. So each one of the elements has a particular character. We did earth, air. The cardinal air is Libra, and I think about the air signs in the relationships. Cardinal air is like this continual balance. Air has a natural duality to it, and so the air sign Libra is about the balance between, is this the right answer, is this the right answer, and the continuous process of weighing, because truth is not finite, because time continues to move. Truths get adjusted as circumstances change, as our experience changes. So Libra is that balancing, going a little this way, going back, going a little forward again, going, you know, and so it's, you know, to be in balance is not a static experience. Then our next, we have fixed air, which is Aquarius. Aquarius is like, this is the way that we think. I always want to say dogma, and I don't mean it actually in a bad way. It's like the set of beliefs that we have that allow us to, you know, to have guidance in those little incremental changes in judgment that we have to make to get through something. And then we have Gemini, which is like flexibility. So, you know, I have my own sense of like a compass, but now I have to adapt to the world and all of the faces that the world shows me, and how I fundamentally will be, you know, how will I be able to move through all of these other options of how to be. I'm talking really a lot today. Any requests? Should we look at somebody's chart maybe?
What about Crowley's chart?
Oh,
How
Crowley.
many videos?
I will look up Crowley's chart. Oh, let's see. Wonder if he's in my detective. Yeah, I don't think so. Anybody know what astrological sign Crowley is?
Libra.
Libra. Yep. Okay. No, I don't care about that. All right. So, like I was saying, he has a Leo ascendant. And then we have, anybody know which glyph this is?
Uranus.
Yep. You know how you can tell? Because this one, it's one of the ways that that gets written, but it's, the top of it is like an H, because they originally called Uranus Herschel. So there you go. So we have first house, second house, nothing specific going on. Third house, also empty. Fourth house, which if any of us have, you know, I think we all have heard about Crowley's relationship with his mother. Not so happy. 4 planets in that fourth house. Sun, Venus, Jupiter, and Mercury. Or no, is that? Yeah, that is. Okay. Yeah. So lots of stuff going on. So what do you think if there's no planets in a house? What does that mean? Anybody take a stab?
Give it a couple hours and they'll be there.
There you go. That's one of the important answers. Yeah, because we've got that 24 hours a day, everything is cycling through. What were you going to say, Jeff?
Well, to me, it just means, there's kind of equal potentiality. Nothing's really going to interfere or help. I mean, it's kind of all wide open.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think, when you look at charts that have things focused really specifically like this, it gives you I think it gives the individual like a lot of experiences that bring a certain area to their attention. So in this case, home and mother, yeah, and these are also close in, close personal. The sun, the Venus, and Mercury are all very close in terms of being personal planets. So you're gonna have a lot of like when the sun crosses this, like Dan was saying, or the moon crosses this, you're gonna have a whole bunch of experience that that kind of comes at you, and it's Libra and Scorpio. So there's this sun in Libra and then Venus in Libra, and then Jupiter and Mercury in Scorpio, which I always think Mercury and Scorpio, for someone who wrote stuff that is like, I don't know, he made it an art form to write things in a way that they were containing so many layers of secrets that it's hard to even ferret them all out. Like you have to have a set of experiences before you can even see it from the perspective, to be able to understand what he's writing about. And like, I mean, what you see, I mean, you could say it just even about the Gnostic Mass, what you see from the perspective of someone who has read it or studied a little bit is entirely different if you've taken initiation, or if you've performed in it as an officer. You get entirely, and so like he's written things that give us these anyway. So it's like very personal and present and on the ground kind of experiences. And then also Jupiter is there, so which is even more like rarefied and expansive and universal in its nature. So writing about secrets that are hidden in plain sight, because you have to be educated to be able to see them. So And then we have Mars in Capricorn. So a person motivated to make some stuff happen. You could see in here also the red and the blue lines. Blue and then I guess purple. What have we got for purple? I think that's a sextile. Oppositions. So, and then up here we have Saturn in Aquarius, which is a place that it's very happy. Saturn in Aquarius is in the 7th house, is a complete like how do I put this? So Aquarius is about innovation and reconsidering structures. It's like the quintessential out of the box, open-minded kind of thinking. And this is about relationships. He was known to be very, very, very far ahead of his time relative to how people interacted, and just the basic foundation of seeing, every person is meant to be liberated, is a very Aquarian ideal. So the structures within his thinking were essentially open-minded and breaking the Victorian box. So that, and especially around relationships. And then of course, that was in opposition to his Uranus in his 1st house, which could potentially have some very sudden shifts in consciousness, which I would correlate with like trance channeling and stuff, like having things just kind of thrown at you to understand. Uranus can be really like a lightning bolt of perspective. And then we've got the moon in Pisces.
Could you, Leslie, before you leave it, can you comment a little bit more about Saturn's influence in Aquarius? I think I understand the Aquarius as you talked about it, but I sort of, why you mentioned that Saturn is really happy there.
Well, Saturn, the archaic rulership of Aquarius, I believe, is Saturn, and then the newer one is Uranus. So the Aquarius is like a product of the perspective of those planets. Just like the moon in Cancer has got a kind of a simpatico, if you will. I mean, I don't think it's actually exalted, but it's very it's a very harmonious place for it to be. The same kind of thing with Aquarius. I mean, Aquarius in Capricorn is happy because Aquarius in Capricorn's got this internal structure of priorities and values and stuff, and Aquarius likes structure. Aquarius, or rather Saturn likes structure, I apologize. Aquarius is about structure too, but it's about changing it. So it's really, it's like a revolutionary place energetically. So he's really was about changing the way people interact. And then that moon in Pisces is like, it's, I don't know if this is, I think this is in a different house system than I'm accustomed to, but it is, because he doesn't have anything in the 8th house, and I always thought he did, but this would be also that ability. It's like the moon is like, the horns of the moon are like antenna picking things up, and with Pisces, you're going to be already able to connect with things in more of an ethereal realm. So this is a very happy placement for a magician. And then we have the North Node in Aries. So not afraid to create a cult of personality, although it wasn't his intention. And then Chiron also in Aries, so the healing process being through the relationship with himself. And I would argue in his case, he would be thinking about it as his guardian angel relationship. And then Neptune also in Aries, so really connected with a lot of people born in this time period. There were some really interesting characters born within about 5 years before, 3 or 4 years before, and a little after him, Edgar Casey, and I'm trying to think of another figure that I ran across, but people who have influenced thought for, at this point, way like close to 150 years, who changed the perspective that we had on things that, and in ways that are kind of hard to even explain because they're so fundamental to our understanding process. I know, like from a perspective around race, that some of the writings from this time period are seminal. We're still looking at them as that process of understanding the experience of coming out of slavery, for instance, right after the Civil War, and people born in that time, in that post-Civil War time, into the intention of the freedom that the war was fought for. So if we look at relationships, we've got the ascendant square Leo, square Scorpio. So some tension between how he behaves and what's expansive and fortunate for him, and how he communicates. And we certainly all know that he struggled with how people perceived him throughout his life. The wickedest man in the world and all of that. And then, of course, we've also got Mercury square Aquarius. So you've got that keeping the secrets, but also wanting to be in the aid of mankind. So you have not just, so like a conflict between the way he would express himself and his intention. So to be writing about things that you want everybody to know and to be able to practice and to be able to put in, and to be able to elevate humanity, but at the same time putting it in such a cryptic sort of medium that not everybody's going to see it, and not everybody's going to understand it, not everybody's going to be able to. And that would be, that could be a difficult thing to live with on a personal level, depending on, how you are with your goals for your life. We've also got squares between Mars here in Capricorn, and how you're getting things done with Chiron, and that Aries energy of being here to learn about yourself. Yeah, I think, I always say when I'm talking about the prophet that we lived close enough to when Crowley was alive. He died in 1947, and that's not even 100 years ago, that we are able to see just how much of a human he was. And I feel like it's important to look at that and to hold on to that, and to value it as knowledge, because as we separate ourselves from our prophets, our teachers, and make them divine or make them, you know, tell stories about them that aren't frankly, our mythology aren't technically real, we separate ourselves from that awareness that we are also divine, which is so fundamental to his teaching. You know, we can look at his chart, we can read all of his books, but when you come right down to it, every one of us has our own astrological chart. Every one of us has our own path, has our own religion to create. And he's given us the tools to be able to interpret our lives. We can spend our time studying Kabbalah and studying, you know, all of the symbol sets so that we can be able to, you know, find meaning in our experiences and you know, create rituals and manifest our will. And we are, we don't get to follow his path and do his work and do our own at the same time. We can emulate what he did, but we have to find our own within us. And I probably, just in saying that, I'm sure there are people who would disagree with me, but it's like, I would say, even though I wouldn't ever consider myself a scholar of Kabbalah, I have embraced the Taoist 5-element philosophy very, very, very deeply in many aspects of my life, and have a system of correspondences that functions for me. And that is, I'm just not interested in Kabbalah that way. I mean, I have a reasonable understanding of it, so I can have a conversation, but it doesn't grab me the way that other material does. And I still get to have a place here, you know? You're not gonna all kick me out because I can't name all the weapons of chesed or whatever. So, I mean, I think-
Well, I wanted to say something to that because right now I'm working with the diversity task force. And one of the things that we were talking about was just like, there are some things like related to Crowley that that's very Victorian and very in that, you know, mindset of, you know, being a white male and being a free man and having these rights that not everyone had at the time. And so like how to put that in perspective, you know, we have like a jaded history, even though our prophet was, you know, such like a forward thinking person of his time. You know, it doesn't apply to our time in the same way, but we can use those principles that that were really forward thinking and open to kind of help with working through some of these difficult things, like racism and implicit bias and different things that have been going on in our society.
Find the universal values in those ideas.
Right.
Yeah. No, I thank you. It can be difficult for people who find themselves in the, you know, in the categories that he didn't get to the place of finding the openness to embrace. You know, I know, for instance, like the things that he said about lesbian women are just fully and extensively offensive. They're just completely like, and that, what is that? That's just like, it's just a presumption that because there's no man involved in the relationship, there's no, you know, there's no validity to it. And that's a very deeply sexist place to come from. And we know that's where he was. It would be kind of a miracle if he wasn't. So, yeah. So anyhow, this is a kind of a different class than I usually do. I hope that it's been useful to everybody. We're getting close to the end, and thank you again, Vanessa, for that perspective, because it's the way that organizations continue to live when they adjust to the times that they're in. And you become, if they hold so much power that they don't have to change, they become forces of what I would refer to as evil.
Yeah, I appreciate the topic coming up. I mean, as part of coming back, I mean, I've stayed with Grand Lodge, but as part of coming back actively into the OTO, it definitely brings up several years of what's been happening, especially in EGC hierarchy and stuff like that, of changes. And so I'm tossed and actively trying to dive into a balance between two subjects. One, you know, frankly, within some of the officers of EGC, especially as related to the Gnostic Mass and stuff like that, where do we balance Crowley as a product of his time, and on the other hand, despite being a product of his time, having shining moments of being a really good magician and knowing what the hell he's talking about. But I really throw my hat into the side of you know, doing your own work and thinking your own thoughts and create your own hierarchy, whether it's the Taoist 5 elements or creating one of your own, frankly, through trance thought and stuff like that and automatic writing in it. So I definitely throw my hat into that side. But I think it's going to be a struggle in the next decade to balance things like gender identity and sex magic with the Gnostic Mass, to where do we draw the lines and boundaries? Where do we accept some pretty heavy level expertise with complete misunderstanding of coming from a time that's different than ours? So I like that that's kind of bleeding through in more and more of these classes.
Yeah, I think it's really profoundly important that we have these conversations at this level. You know, I can't speak from, I don't know, I don't consider myself an expert, but I can tell you I'm an expert in my own experience. And I can tell you that the shift that happened within me when I began my transition, I was one thing and I'm not that thing anymore. And if you see that I am only fit for one role because of my genitals, I just don't, I feel kind of like we've lost a lot of possibility in that.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that.
Yeah. Well, I am always grateful for the opportunity to double check the chats here and see if somebody had something they wanted to add. But I was going to say I always am grateful for the opportunity to talk about these subjects with everyone and to have these conversations. I feel like we, you know, we are where all of the transformation is happening. This is the place where things are changing, and as we are sharing our experience with each other and allowing, you know, the things that we need to be secret, and the things that are safe to share, and, you know, and experiences that help people understand, that we share those experiences that help people understand, that as we do that work, we're kind of a microcosm, as always, in the greater world of a place where a culture is occurring that has the possibility of growing and continuing and being that kind of Aquarian utopic kind of idea that Crowley wanted. He really wanted people to be able to express their will and live in harmony. And I mean, I certainly got that from his materials. So anyhow, I like I said, I appreciate the opportunity to have the conversations.
Well, thank you for your class today, Leslie.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So I will stop sharing so that you can show the card there, Steve.
I just did, so.
Oh, you did? Okay.